So yeah, this is the main message. The book is ready, but the book is not yet available. So that's one of these consequences of what's happening these days. The book is at the printer. It's ready to be sent. It's ready to be shared. We're very glad to have this out now, but it's gonna wait a little bit more to be available online and to be available across. So, fifth generation purchasing. That's the title of the book that we are now releasing. What will you get inside this book? What will you discover is 6 work modes. So the idea is really to describe, thanks to many interviews of CPOs, thanks to a lot of practices coming from different organization and fields as well, a lot of input from innovation people, things, different ways of doing our job. We tend to have a rather straightforward way of doing our job in purchasing. And the main message we want to bring is, depending of the speed of change and the demand side and the speed of change and the supply side, we need to be able to work in different modes in order to deliver maximum value, maximum innovation to the business. So why is this happening? Well, it's not because purchasing is making progress. It's not because we are continuously going forward. The change is simply due because of the changes in the business environment. If we go back 100 years ago, everything was focusing on standardization. Today, beginning of the 20th century, 21st century, we are focusing on personalization, and a lot of it is driven by data-led services, digital opportunities. If we go back 100 years ago, you would have a factory you would have Ford. This would be one factory. The raw materials would arrive on one hand, the product would go at the other hand. So it would be a vertically integrated company. There would be no suppliers except raw materials provider. Today, it's not just a chain, but it's a more complex ecosystem with a lot of players, and very often we need to bring some collaboration across multi-party in this more complex external environment. 100 years ago, the main challenge was about scale, scaling the business, reaching some economies of scale. Today, economies of scale are still important, but very much upstream of industries. If we think of microprocessors, or if you think on some raw material, scale is playing a key role. But for other industries, this is less significant, less important, and that means for purchasing, there's sometimes less opportunity for consolidation. 100 years ago, if you had a strong brand, this was really something that was helping the business to make a difference. Today, we in procurement, we need to do a lot of work to manage communities, protect the brand, strengthen the brand. So I think that's also a major difference. 100 years ago, businesses were mainly organized around hierarchies. It was mainly about bringing people that were coming from farming, for instance, putting them into factories under supervision and making the whole things work. Today, a lot of the jobs, require white collars job, require a lot of problem-solving capabilities, and we've got some people at the center of the business in a company, and then we've got some satellites, some external teams, some supplier teams supporting us in our job. So the structure of organization has changed. Because of all this change in the environment, this means that within purchasing, within procurement, we also need to make changes. So three picture. So what should we be trying to achieve? We should be combining both space and power, making sure that in some circumstances, we take the time to leverage our buying power. While in other circumstances, we need to be able to accelerate the pace of buying in order to fit with the needs of the business and the evolution of the market. We should simultaneously accelerate and anticipate. We've been saying very often that we need to be involved early. There are cases where we need to be involved early. We need to anticipate what we want to buy, how we want to buy it, where we could be buying it. But in other circumstances, to satisfy the requirement of the business, we need to do things much faster. We need to be able to source even innovative but low risk type of things in a short amount of time. And the last one, we've tended to look at how can we exploit opportunities? How can we work with existing supplier in order to further bring some cost reduction? But because we live in this complex world, we also need to explore new opportunities. So look for some innovation, look for new ideas, look for new opportunities to deliver value for the business and for the final client. So these three sentences are really kind of, or three questions, are really kind of encapsulating what we've been trying to describe within the book. So the model we've built is a model with 6 work modes. What you have on the side here, oops, no, I'm going to the wrong. What we have here is the speed of change on the demand side. Your internal stakeholders, the client of the business, how fast do they want something new? How fast do their needs are evolving? And if we look here is the speed of change on the supply side. In terms of the supplier of the supplier, what is the pace of change? How often some new developments are coming to the business? So this is 2 axes that help us to understand where is it that we need to operate in certain mode and where is it that we could be operating in a different mode. Let me say, if the world is not changing so much on the demand side and the supply side, this is a world of tactical buying. We'll be describing this very soon, but tactical buying is about creating stability. Having a contract that can be quite demanding to put in place, but a contract that will allow people from stakeholders, users, to be able to access what they need in the most simplest possible way. At the other end of the spectrum, if the stakeholders, the clients, on one hand, and if the suppliers, the technology on the other hand keep changing, you need to be involved in small teams supporting the exploration of new solutions. Okay, so that's really the structure of the model, looking at the pace of change on the supply side, the pace of change on the demand side. What I'd like to do today is just to give you an overview, just to take you through the overall logic, trying to give you a sense of what's behind, this book, what's inside it, and what are all these modes about. What I suggest is, as you go, as we go through this, just log any reactions, log any questions, log any point you have. Then I can, from time from time to time, I can come back to your points, to your questions, and we can get into a short discussion if you want. So here we're in the world of tactical buying. The motto is simplify. We need to create opportunities for the users to get access to what they need in the simplest possible way. It's all about creating efficiencies, and a lot of it can be achieved thanks to um, you know, digital tools in terms of automation, but a lot of it can be also achieved through platforms, marketplaces, distributors that you can integrate inside your processes and that you can bring within next to the users in the business so they can get access to some of these solutions. These days, there's a lot of opportunities to make tactical buying more and more sophisticated in terms of the richness, the type of solution you can get and you can access. I'd like to show you a couple of examples. There's very little that has been written and said about the power of aggregators and marketplace. And this goes well beyond using Amazon Business Services. And there's many opportunities to leverage marketplaces, to leverage some of these solutions. I'll give you a few examples. We talk a lot about this protective equipment these days. So vending machines, you could have vending machines inside your factories that are directly related to marketplaces, to online catalogs, and they automatically reorder what's needed. So everyone's got access to what they need during these vending machines. So it's not just about digital web, but it's also about Internet of Things and these vending machines. Opportunities for simple cases as well. If you want to do, if you are managing prints for the company, anything about printing, you've got, for instance, some platform that exists where you go directly inside the platform. There might be also some tools in terms of the design, in terms of the finishing. You upload documents, and then instantly you will get access to a wide diversity of options in terms of printing, and you even have a dynamic pricing logic. So if you change the date of delivery, immediately you will see changes of price. This is the kind of platform that's specialist. You only find suppliers of printing solutions, and this can be really helpful in terms of accessing wherever in the world, whatever you need in terms of capabilities for this. And that's a good example of how to push tactical buying. One of the other example, which is an example of disintermediation, is the use of LinkedIn Recruiter. So what do I mean by disintermediation? It's about getting rid of one player within the chain of supply. So instead of going to your supplier, you go to your supplier of your supplier. So LinkedIn Recruiter allows some companies to do this. You very often in your company, people who are buying HR services, they would be going to a recruiting company, and that recruiting company would be using LinkedIn to, to post their jobs and to access profiles that could be useful for this. And there's other benefit of that, but I'm not here to promote that specifically. The idea for some company has been to realize that the added value of the recruiter was getting smaller, and therefore, for certain type of jobs, and therefore they've been leveraging access to a platform, LinkedIn, and the professional tools to use that to recruit people. People in HR have been retrained in doing recruitment, and now they're using this. So that's another way of doing, if you want some some tactical buying, and which is not purely about commodity. We are talking about people recruitment, so it goes beyond that. But this is using some of the technology to achieve that. One point that's quite also important to have in mind, we just believe that platforms can only be used for, let's say, existing platform that we are going to integrate in our system. Well, actually, you can also build your own platforms. I'll just give an example. So instead of buying, you might be making your own platform. You might be, using an existing tool, which is, one that exists, is called NetHive. And then you can, create parameters inside that system to operate internally your own platforms for freelancers. There's a bank, for instance, in a small European country. Today, they've got half of the freelancers for IT and software activities that exist in the country. They have them in their own platform. So they can post a job inside this platform, and very quickly they find the right people to deliver the right solution. So that's a lot of examples of platforms that can support achieving that in terms of and you've got a number of CPO in the book that are describing example of this. Okay, let me move on. Now, let me look at consolidation. Consolidation is probably the work mode that we know the best. This is about creating economies of scale. This is about consolidating, creating synergies. This is about standardization. And what's important is to be able to talk to different countries, to different business with, the same type of language, to leverage the same type of tools around the world in order to create these synergies. From the relationship with the supplier, it's important to see that as an opportunity to build deeper collaboration, to create very strong mutual understanding on how we work, how they work, how they will support us in difficult time, in good time, all these type of things. And what's important is to control your strengths. One of the most important aspects is to make sure that you have the best people from the supplier that are actually working for your company and not for anyone else. And any company that's not controlling its strengths when building this kind of synergies is therefore pushing away some of the best people from the desire to work with them. So that can be very counterproductive. Maybe you have a cheap supplier, maybe you have a very capable supplier, but you might not be getting access to their best people in terms of delivering the value. I won't spend more time on this one. I think this is a classic one. I'd like now to go to another one that we've been talking a lot about, which is, the peak in terms of supplier relationship management. This is about collaboration and alliances. What's the motto here? What's the focus of this work mode? This is I grow, you grow, we grow together. We need to partner with very few but very key companies that can help the business to grow and develop into the future. This is the few key partners. We wouldn't be able to take, the steps needed to achieve the new competitive advantage we need without having them on board. A number of challenges here and a number of recommendations that have been emerging from all the interviews and all the discussion we had there. You need to treat them as an extension of your organization. You need to see people there, to interact with the people there, to spend time with them as if they were part of your own company. Bad news should go to them as fast as they go to your people internally. Rewards should go to them as you provide rewards and recognitions to people internally. Very good case. There's a company, Avril, that has been giving awards to suppliers. But instead of giving the award to the company, they've been giving the award by putting on stage people from both companies. So people from the buying company, Avril, and from its supplier. So it was a team that was getting access to this. This was a way of recognizing the people, the cross-company team, and ensuring that would be attractive to work for you as a company when you work for that supplier. Whenever we look at this mode, very classic recommendation, but grow the pie, look at how we can do more together and don't find for crumbs trying to, cut some of the price here and there. The logic is how we've got a positive spirit going forward, trying to create more value together and not spending the whole time discussing on how to cut costs here and there. Okay, that's for collaboration. Not long ago, we did some webinars on Agile, and Agile vendor selection. So when the speed of change is rapid on the demand side, when people want something new on a regular basis, this is very classic what you will be finding in some of the indirect procurement activities, for instance. And maybe you need some new suppliers from time to time, but there's a broad array of solutions that exist, and you can go to the market and get access to them. Really, the motto here is finding when you need to anticipate, when you need to accelerate. When you need to anticipate, maybe to aggregate the needs in such a way that you can find an aggregator or an outsourcing option that helps you to get the diversity of things from the market that you would want. And sometimes it's all about accelerating, working closely with the business partner, working closely with the stakeholder. So, hey, the new planning for budget is going to start. We need to integrate new solutions about analyzing risk as part of this budget. We've got only a few weeks to source a new solution to support this budget process. Let's bring a team together, work together, accelerate. It's not about not respecting the different stages of the process, but it's about doing something in a collaborative mode together with the supplier, with the business partner, to quickly select the right vendor that can quickly start to deliver. So that's about getting access to valuable solution to the business that has changing needs. What's important here, I would say on the supplier side, is keep track of all the new solutions offered by your suppliers. We know what existing supplier already deliver to us, but very often we start to look for new options somewhere else when existing supplier can offer more or different options. So create a database of all the capabilities your existing supplier have. That's a great way to accelerate things here. And run this type of agile vendor selection process where you can instead of let me say doing things one by one over 7-8 months, bring people together in the same room, the stakeholders. Don't describe your specification in detail. Just describe the problem, the user. Get opportunity for the supplier to talk to some of the users, to exchange with them, and to present to you some mock-up very quickly. And organize a meeting where suppliers are in your walls to present their solutions and to present their proposals quickly, so you can cut costs a lot on this implementation. Okay, let's move to the next one. Do we have any reactions, any questions? Yeah, there will be the PowerPoint in send. So that's what I've presented sometime. This was about the agile vendor selection. There was a full webinar on this one. So instead, that's what I was saying more or less. Instead of describing in detail the specification, that could work for a software as a service, for HR, for instance. That can work for a lot of situations where you're looking for something new, but the risk and the stakes are not too high. So that's not a situation where you're going to have to outsource a lot of your people or there's a lot of unknowns, but you can quickly understand diversity of solutions and you can quickly test them to make your choice. So instead of writing specification, you can create personas. So this is about describing who are your users, and then you can describe the user journey. A user journey is how the person will be interacting with what you buy. So imagine you've got people working for research and development, they're buying equipment. So, they would be mapping the user journey, the installation of the equipment, the calibration of the equipment, the use of the equipment, the cleaning and maintenance of the equipment. And then you would be asking what is it that the users are typically doing, what is the question that come to their mind when they do this, what are the things they don't like about it, what are the problems they face, what they dislike, what are their pain points. And instead of giving the requirement as specification, I want this, that, and that, and that, you just create this user journey and you communicate that to the supplier that will have, in fact, a much better understanding in a faster way about your needs. If the solution is extremely complex, then that wouldn't be working fine because you would need to do a bit more work and indeed to specify and to separate some of the problem into sub-block. But here, that's not really needed. This is an alternative to what we do in terms of sourcing through listing all the functions and things like that. Okay, Competence Centre is really a world where we have a lot of change on the supply side, and on the business, it could be quite stable or it could be changing from time to time. So you might have an industry that has like a fairly long cycle. Let me take like the aerospace defense industry. There's new generation of product every so and so in terms of time, every 5-10 years, something like this. And on the supply side, they might have all these electronic products that are coming on a new basis. So they need people who have an expertise, a competence in understanding the evolution of the market, what's accessible, what is there. So they can act as an advisor to the business, helping them in terms of understanding what's going to be existing in 1 year, 2 years that they could be leveraging in their activities. It's also what you find for raw materials. Sometimes access to raw materials is very, very deep inside supply chain, and you need to understand who else is asking for these raw materials. What are the alternative sources? How they can be safe, and many other points. So the needs of the business, they're still buying the same raw materials. Maybe volumes are changing a bit, but you need to have a very good expertise in terms of understanding what's happening, not just inside the direct supplier, but if you're thinking of, buying cacao or buying some of these food raw materials, then you need to go much deeper into the supply chain, being able to understand what's happening. Here, what's important is to look beyond the obvious, not just stop at the top 3 suppliers, but look well beyond the obvious, being able to understand what's happening deep in the supply chain, what could be joining in terms of startups in that supply chain in the future. So you would be able to anticipate what's going to happen tomorrow and advise the business about this. You need to spot future threats. You need to spot future opportunities. So you do a good job of helping everyone understanding how to make a difference. To do this, you need to map the ecosystem. And very often, you need to make sure you're attractive for these suppliers. They might not see your company as the one they want to engage with. They might not see your industry as the one they want to engage with. Too often, we think we are obviously a great company to work with because we are putting money on the table. But for innovation, for new things, for general purpose technology, well, things can be quite different, and we need to make a difference. What's very important is one talking about achieving cognitive fluidity. Whenever we bring something new, we need to understand what are the fears in the business. What are the fears of people from quality? What are the fears from people from engineering? What are the fears from people in marketing? Too often, we tend to focus on, so what is it that we need? And the real point where you make a change here is when you understand, what would prevent people from liking a new solution. And to do that, you need to get them to express their fear so you can understand if that solutions coming from outside is going to make a difference or not. This is a totally, and you need to share yours. We tend to, to put forward the supply risk much more than the other ones. So that's very important. It's really getting to understand it's not a hidden agenda. It's not a lack of willingness of collaboration, but people have concerns. People have, immediately they see something new and they see why it might not work. So you need to go deep in trying to understand what's behind that and why you have these things, and people have that in their mind. And very often, if they don't understand you, it's because they don't understand your own fear, your own concerns, what might go wrong according to you. So that's where we need to spend a lot of time to achieve this cognitive fluidity. Here, because you're going into the unknown, this is something I've been presenting some time ago in a different webinar as well. The classic way of doing supplier selection might not fit. Sometimes, yes, we can use an RFP, an RFI, or what we've described as an agile vendor selection. But in some situation, if we have very unfamiliar player, we don't know their technology, we don't know how they can operate, then we won't be able to qualify them. We don't know what quality means. We don't have these element. So in that case, you might want to organize a competition. You give them data you have, you give them information, and say, show us what you would be able to do. At the other hand of the spectrum, if you're looking at existing supplier but want to push in terms of new ideas, then you could be using innovation workshops. So depending on what you look for, product, capabilities, or ideas, and who this is coming from, existing supplier, other supplier, or unfamiliar supplier, then you will need to use different ways of getting access. Okay? So that's another reason why we've got these different work modes going around. Okay, let me go on. And a lot of different ways of organizing innovation workshops. That's something we deliver in the book. We have a whole set of tools on mapping ecosystems and doing innovation workshops. So exploration, the logic is to design the way we work so we can fail. I don't like the people who say that we need to fail more. I think we need to design the way we work so we can be ready to fail. That's very different. And the point is not to go for success and fail. If you do that, very often people, they don't learn because they're disappointed because they just feel, the failure. What's important is to, instead of trying, this is my story, the usual story about the gardener. If you want some innovation, if you want to have a nice flower, are you going to put only one seed in the ground and give all your love to that seed. No, you are going to put a lot of different seeds and you're going to let them grow quick, and then you'll pick the best one. So same, fail fast, learn fast. I mean, try multiple solutions. Ask suppliers 5 different ways of solving your problems, 5 different ways of, creating an answer. Not in depth, but describe high level, show them to you, and then you can iterate. Okay? So create condition by which the supplier, because they're going to have 5 options, they're going to be failing on 4 of them. But then, altogether, you're going to be learning fast how to get further. So it's not like putting all the energy in one solution and then you tell them, oh, sorry, big failure, we don't want that. No, it's like there's a process to create this selection amongst these opportunities and to make this happen in the right way. Here, what I think is important these days is a lot of people are jumping on small projects. I think it's always important to have a vision of what we want to achieve. So what can you do for that? So if you're working with HR, for instance, and you're supporting with access to tools and to suppliers for HR, what you can do is, try to create like a workshop where you bring for 30 minutes a lot of different suppliers, analysts sharing their views about the future, and then spend some time with HR thinking, your stakeholders thinking in terms of how can we make things different? What could it look like in the future? What would be the vision for tomorrow? How could we leverage this technology? And overall, as a big picture, not which project we need to start tomorrow. First, what is the vision? And that's true for anything. That's true for a product. If your company is doing, if you're doing the electric grid for a country, what is the vision for the electric grid in 30 years? And what type of technology could help achieve, bring solution to some of the future problem we will have. So create a vision first. Do that quick. Doesn't need to be 2 years of studies, Very fast. Bring some solutions, get people together, a workshop. And then you can start proof of concept. Then you can start to experiment a bit. Work closely, test the solution of the supplier. If you want to please a supplier who's working for you on innovation, the quality of your feedback, the time you spent explaining why you like this, why you didn't like this, and things like that. If some people are working the extra step to propose to you something that's quite new, that's quite different, money coming from future contract is important, but feedback, how they can improve, what could they do differently in the future, what's your reaction as a user, what are the problems it's not solving, that's gold for them. So make sure you take that into consideration. And after, of course, there's a challenge of scaling up some of the solutions. Maybe this is about transferring technology to an existing supplier. Just be very open to the options here. So I wanted to share also a few words because some people might be saying, Hervé, you know what? The world has changed over the past few weeks. And because we are getting into a period that's going to be very volatile, maybe your whole thing about, speed and innovation is no more relevant. Well. I don't think so. Today a lot of companies are realizing it's useless to put advertising on TV. So the companies where purchasing is really helping, what they do is they quickly adapt their media strategy to the situation. So purchasing can quickly go to suppliers to make sure that the portfolio of activities in terms of communication and advertising is changing in the coming weeks and months. So reacting very quick as an agile advisor is absolutely important. And tactical buying can be very, very useful because it's often important to eliminate some of the risk in these types of situation. And marketplaces, distributors are very good ways often to kind of maintain a sort of unique relationship while having a multiplicity of options and creating some resilience. You know, if you have marketplaces for protective equipment, if you have marketplaces with 70 mask producers, then it becomes less of a challenge to be able to source those. So that's tactical buying is can contribute to create this kind of no risk situation by leveraging a multiplicity of solutions. Short term, a lot of companies these days, with what's happening with the COVID, they're implementing short-term horizon SRM with critical suppliers. The point is not to exchange email. The point is to have rapid communication at the right level, not to promise the infinite world, not to be very negative with the supplier, but communication. How are you? How can we help you? How you can help us? That's what's being implemented by the company who are reacting currently, and that's fitting nicely into collaboration and alliances. Exploration. What we see around the world now is a lot of people are looking for innovative solution under pressure. How can we change the product so we don't have that constraint? How can we modify or requalify new sources rapidly? How could we move into 3D printing that we can print anywhere? So, or open source solutions. So exploration is very relevant in this context. Competence Centre, if you want to make sure you've got access to raw material, well, you shouldn't be just looking at your direct supplier. You need to understand where are located the ultimate source of rare earth minerals, or what's the level, what's the situation in some countries in terms of the disease confinement for farmers in places. So that's about looking deep into your ecosystem. So Competence Centre activity. And, if you're typically running the consolidation, take the lead role in the business, in the budget process for tomorrow. Make sure that you are going to participate in a budget process where decision can be taken fast, where people can have what-if options, where you can validate these options, you can find solutions, you can de-risk, where there is a budget that can help for solving problems and things like this, and that you can play a role in sourcing solutions for solving problems. So today, if you want, what's happening to business and what's going to happen is a condensed version of all this change taking place everywhere. And the 6 work modes, an Agile Advisor, acting as a tactical buyer, leading collaboration alliances, creating consolidation through this budget process, looking deep in the supply chain through the Competence Centre and exploring new opportunities. Well, we have them implemented all around the world these days. So the 6 work modes are in full swing. They're in full action these days. So that's it. That was really me trying to tell you what we've been putting in this 260 pages book. It's full of interviews, because it's not just the content that we wrote, but it's also CPOs from very different companies that are reflecting on their experience. On collaboration with startup, we've got a special section with 4 interviews. We've not been interviewing buyers about how to work with startup. We've been interviewing some leading entrepreneurs, people that have been creating startups that are very successful, on how they see the collaboration with the with the big companies. There's plenty of tools as well, and I hope this will help you to, think about the job of purchasing in a different way and find some opportunities to bring things differently. We will be launching the book normally. What is normal these days? 2nd, 3rd of September in Paris at the EIPM conference. So, if you want to join, there'll be lots of presentation, a lot of discussion, but it can be a great opportunity to see more about it. Do I get any questions, any reactions? Thank you. Well, thank you, Onur. What else? Yes, we will share the slides. Okay. What else? Do you like it? It's very quiet this morning. Usually I get a lot of different reactions. So I hope this is giving you how do you see the current procurement? I think procurement today. Let me. That's some time ago. I did a survey. So I got people in a room. There were about 100 people from procurement, and I said, "How many of you are very good at making consolidation happen?" And everybody was standing up. Nobody was sitting down. This is something they tend to do. They might not be good at it everywhere, but that's what they achieve. Then I said, have you been investing in, tactical buying? Have you been investing in some of the technology marketplace? You would have 20 people going down. So 80% are good in both consolidation, tactical buying. Then collaboration and alliance. A lot of people started to sit down. There was only 20% of the people staying up. And at the end, when we covered Agile Advisor, Competence Centre, Exploration, there were 3 people that were still standing. So basically, today, procurement is pretty good at consolidation, investing in tactical buying, sometimes through SRM programs, reaching a good level in terms of collaboration and alliance. Problem is it's too purchasing centric and not business centric sometimes, and too often we just reinvent the wheel every 3 years, and it's not about the project we do with this supplier, it's more about how we structure them and discuss about them. But Agile Advisor, Competence Centre, Exploration, this is still to come in terms of more development. There are pockets of excellence. What do you think long terms of COVID will be on business operation? Do you think business will return to normal? There will be, times of change, times of transformation like this, external shocks. They create both problems and opportunities. So, there will be some changes in the structure of the supply chain. There could be some very strong changes in terms of the where we saw things and other things, but I think we are going to spend much more time trying to understand how we can de-risk things and how we can create more redundancies. One of my expectations is we are going to push suppliers to open the interface of their product. We are going to push suppliers to design that will be more open, so we can recreate capacity anywhere. That's already happening in some industries, and I think that will be one of the big impact we are going to be seeing, leveraging some capabilities for open architectures and 3D printing, for instance. I think there'll be a big push in that. I think platforms and aggregators of marketplaces, this type of solution will have a very, very strong positive evolution because of what we are going through. It's going to accelerate what's happening here. There was one comment that I can't read anymore. We are focusing on sending multiple RFPs. Yes. That's a very good point. Yes, we need to step back and try to stop sending an RFP for a lot of little things and try to understand within that industry who could help us with the capabilities to aggregate the needs, to customize the outcomes in order to have one supplier that's architecturing a solution instead of going for every time a new solution. Okay, what else I'm seeing here? But yeah, to do that on tactical buying, you need to understand your market and you need to challenge the way of doing things. Okay, there's a lot of things that could be said about that, but sometimes it's because we don't look. It's just because we don't challenge the way we do things. We just go and get another one of this and another one of that. We don't ask ourselves, how could we further use distributors? How could we further use marketplaces? How can we create our own marketplace? We just need to step back and think differently. Great overview and learning and sharing. Thank you. Internal collaboration. Yes. Agreed. It's not just about working with outside, inside, moving away from cost-cutting function. If cost-cutting is about stupidly cutting price, yes, a lot of opportunities in terms of innovation will reduce the total cost in the end. So we're still here to contribute to, having some positive cost impact as well. But agreed. What do you think it will be the real impact on sourcing and purchasing? Yeah. So we are talking to a number of people currently trying to understand. So I think it's a bit early to share a lot, but you need to sequence what you do in terms of, so you need to restore continuity. Restoring continuity is trying to understand what am I missing to do things on a short-term basis. You need to keep an eye on the longer term, but a lot of the challenge are about currently just restoring a continuity. And then you need to work on restarting, if you want, the regaining performance. Looking at who in terms of customer you're going to be serving and who in terms of supplier you're going to be focusing in. And after, you'll be looking at how you regain advantage. The most important thing is work with people from the business, work with people from finance, design what will be the budget process you're going to be using in the next 18 months. Okay? That's absolutely essential. Bye-bye, Alex. Give me a message. The budget process will be everything important because this will be the nerve that will inform the whole business in the next 18 months. New risk management. As I said, look for solutions where you will create redundancies or you will be finding ways of having transparencies. Again, this is something I've shared last week in another webinar, but we need integrated cockpit for risk. So the problem is the business is going to take some decision and they won't know about how much risk they create on the supply side. So we need to find indicators that help to understand actions of everyone impact on risk profile. And best would be to have a risk cockpit where information is fed in a system in real time that helps to understand the evolution of the risk profile and what are the root cause of risk. But I think it's too short this day to just give you all that in a Q&A, to be honest. I'm going very fast here, but there's a lot to be done, and we will be sharing things about this. And fifth generation, the 6 work modes, they're going to be in full swing here. Hey, thanks a lot to you, all of you, for being here today. There was a large attendance. It's really nice. I know everybody is busy facing some challenge these days, but the future is not going to disappear. The future is something we need to be ready for, and the speed of change on the demand side, the speed of change on the supply side is going to be strong. So we need to be able to switch mode, work in different ways in order to deliver the value and bring that profession forward. Thanks a lot.